April was my third full month as a full-time writer, and it's been a roller coaster. This month I have finished 5 new pieces, I sent out 9 new submissions, I received 5 rejections, 1 acceptance, and I got one of those rejections was a really good one. The big news is I was accepted for publication through the college, and the publisher reached out for an interview. It's not a paid piece, but it comes with exposure. And today I'm breaking down my deadline-driven process that made this possible. So I didn't just write when I felt like it. I used an external submission call as my hard deadlines. I focused on one piece at a time and moved to the next one once the first was sent. I finished my 3 short stories and 2 poems using this process, and it removed all of the guesswork and kept me disciplined. So each month I put my submission deadlines into my calendar, and then I work toward each deadline as it comes up due. The process really takes a lot of the guesswork out because I'm not waiting for an idea to come to me. I'm chasing the ideas. I'm writing to the submission calls instead of trying to find submission calls that match what I've already written. It's been interesting because it's also brought some genres to my writing that I don't normally write in. For example, I wrote a paranormal noir that was set on the dark side of the moon. It was called Tidal Lock, and it was a space colony of essentially supernatural creatures. So that was one that I looked up the genre conventions for. I read a couple short stories of the style. I looked for a voice that suited that genre and the expectations for it. It was one of my more experimental pieces, and I was really proud of how that turned out. The other short story piece that I finished this month was a retelling of the Ballad of Tamlin. That is a Scottish folk tale about a basically heiress that ends up pregnant by a man who's been taken by the Fae, and she has to rescue him by holding on to him while he changes into a bunch of different forms. In some versions it's snakes and bears and lions and wolves and fire and burning lead. He goes through a lot of different things. So for my submission on it, I got 9 pages of brainstorming, and then I wrote the story over a course of 10 days. It ended up being 6,569 words, I believe. It was my longest piece this month. The other 2 pieces I wrote were poems. I wrote one to a submission call for Rest as Resistance, and the piece I wrote was called The Stoneworkers. And it was a parable of a group of people who are paid to put stones on each other's backs, and the harder they work, the harder their job gets. The other piece that I wrote was a poem for a spring submission call, and it was titled Fledgling. So what I wrote was called The First Flight, and it was a kind of metaphoric, using a bird leaving the nest as going on a journey and facing fears. That poem was one of the declined submissions, but it just hasn't found its market yet. So the rejection that I've put on screen. The part of this that really struck with me was the PS. It says, "The stoneworkers came close. I'm sure another venue will buy it." So that told me a lot about what they thought of this work. It was discussed, so it wasn't an immediate no. They considered it. that tells me it's not the writing that was the problem, it was just the timing. Between the acceptance and the almost rejection, I am seeing that the system is working. It's not working as fast as I would like, but I don't think it will ever do that. Success in writing is about momentum. Using deadlines to fuel my output has changed my workflow. If you're feeling stuck, find a call with a fast approaching deadline. And that's my plan for May. I am going to aim for another 9 submissions and see how many acceptances and rejections that I get. Thank you for following along. I'll see you in the next update. And if you want to continue to follow my journey, I am at less than 10 subscribers right now. So if you would like to subscribe, I'll continue to share what I'm doing.